Everybody, thanks for all of you coming. This is as loud as it goes, I think. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hit something, so I think that's better. Okay, good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm Martha Gregg. I'm the CEO at Sullivan County Memorial Hospital. And we ask you all to come to public meetings tonight and tomorrow night at Green City concerning our project for a new hospital and hospital campus. So hopefully we'll be able to tell you about our project, answer questions, and build support for this project for Sullivan County and for the future of healthcare here. I want to introduce or have them introduce themselves, everyone that here at the front tables. I'm going to start over to my left. And they're going to probably do it without a mic, but just do it loud. And I know most of you know everyone here, but just to get it out there, who's here?
I'm Angie Curtis, the Board Trustee Secretary.
I'm Mel Fordyce, Chairman of the Board of Trustees.
I'm Bill Lewis, and I'm just a has-been. I'm in between trying to be a professional golfer and fly fisherman.
I'm Jim Keaton. I serve on the Board of Trustees, and I'm just trying to keep up with him. I'm okay. Hey, I'm John Doolittle. I'm a has-been too, but I'm a younger one. I'm from Albany, Missouri. I got to be the administrator of my hometown hospital for 11 years, and now I work for something called the Missouri Hospital Association, which is an organization that provides services to hospitals around the state.
Okay, Danny.
I'm Danny Bartlett, Chief Ancillary Officer.
Amy Michael, Chief Operating Officer. Becky Thomas, Chief Nursing Officer.
Chris May, Presiding Commissioner of Sullivan County.
Ron Page, Associate Commissioner.
Mike Williams, Associate Commissioner, and I'm glad I'm on the end.
Okay, so how many here have had some experience with the hospital, have been touched by that hospital in some way? Okay, good to see that. We're hoping that we had a group of people in the 1940s that decided that they needed a hospital for both healthcare and for jobs to be developed in Sullivan County in the 1940s. And they put that together in a plan, and in May of 1953 they built and opened the hospital out there on the hill. So it's been there for 72 years this coming May. What we're trying to do right now is to make sure that we have health care in Sullivan County for the next 70 years. And it's not an easy task. And we know it's hard, and we know that there's a lot of doubt in some people's minds about how we're going to do that. So that's the purpose of the meeting tonight. We want to share the challenges that we have had, and we know that there are challenges in the future. So we're trying to address those. We've looked at it long and hard. This has been the group effort of the people that work at the hospital board, the county commissioners, the city of Milan, local stakeholders in Green City, Newtown, and Milan, and throughout the county. And we've also worked with Green Hills Planning Commission, and we're working with USDA. So we've incorporated a lot of people, as well as our state and national legislators too, to say we want to continue with health care in Sullivan County, and we know that our building right now will not sustain us to do and be able to do that. We have been planning for some time on this. One of the things that brought this to bear was that we had a lot of renovations we had to do just to meet the life safety issues that a survey in 2019 presented to us. So the things that we see the hospital being important for is, I think, the most natural assumption is all the healthcare services it provides. So many of you probably have had someone that's had to use the ER. And I think that comes up a lot in people's minds is the ER services. But there's a lot of other services that are important as well that a hospital provides. We have the inpatient, and you won't see as many inpatients. You can change. You won't see as many inpatients nowadays as you used to because more things are done on an outpatient basis. We also have skilled services. I don't know how many of you here have known of somebody that stayed in a hospital for 3 nights for some reason, either here or for like a stroke or a broken hip that they had to have fixed, and then came back here to receive skills services so that they could be closer to home and not have to be away from their family and their friends, and they could see their loved ones and they heal better and they're happier to be closer to home. We have observation, which is a short-term stay, usually less than 23 hours or so. And then we have long-term residence. We used to have the Medicaid certified long-term care unit, and that closed in 2019 because it wasn't financially viable to continue doing that. But we still do have some self-pay residents that stay at the hospital. Emergency and trauma, we see everything. We see car accidents, we see farm accidents, sports injuries. We have medical emergencies, with respiratory, with cardiac. We treat strokes, we treat MIs, heart attacks. And then we have the full service of radiology, from regular x-rays to MRI on a weekly basis. We have the CT scanner, we have ultrasounds. So we do that, as well as the outpatient services. You guys may have had people that had to come in for injections on a regular basis, or antibiotic therapy, or blood transfusions. And we have cardiac rehab. We also have the physical, occupational, and speech therapies. So that's pretty much everything we do now in the hospital. And then we have the rural health clinics. We have 3 rural health clinics. One right across the street, Milan Family Practice, one in the hospital, and then we have a 2-day clinic in Green City. So we're trying to serve the community and offer primary care, through those services. And then in both Milan Family Practice and the clinic out in the hospital, we also have specialty care. So we bring in specialty physicians, and they come on a monthly basis, or sometimes more often than that, mostly monthly for us. And we have 7 of those right now: rheumatology, urology, you're going to change the next slide, OBGYN, orthopedic surgery, and we do wound care. So those are 7 right now. If you saw the slide before, we can go back again, but expected new services in a new hospital would include more procedures, because right now we have a procedure room that you can't use for any kind of sedation or anesthesia. So we use it for pain management and injections, but it's not usable for anything else. We used to have a gastrointestinal doctor, and he would do colonoscopies, EGDs. All of those have to go outside the county right now. So everybody that wants a colonoscopy, or a physician orders a colonoscopy, has to leave. Dr. Holt's there for podiatry. She can't do procedures because we can't do anesthesia in that procedure room. So those are some of the limitations that the building provides us now, and limits our ability to have revenue, and it limits the ability for people in this county to receive care locally. They have to travel for those things. So the hospital has lots of services. With a new facility, we can offer more services. And then the other thing that the hospital's important for is the economic driver it provides for Sullivan County, and has for 72 years. So right now, we have 121 employees. That 121 employees and the benefits and the other contracted services and contracted people bring it to about a $7.4 million churn of money for payroll, et cetera, every year. So we're the 4th largest employer in the county. Smithfield's first, the school and Simmons are higher than us as the number of employees, and we're next. So can you imagine 121 people looking for a job someplace else? They would all have to find it, or most of them would have to find it elsewhere in another county. So those are the 2 main things you see as a hospital: the services it offers, the services we will be able to offer in the future, and the economic impact it's had, and the positive impact it's had in the county all these years, and will continue to have in the future. So let's look at the services that we provided in fiscal year 2024. And I think some people, if you don't have to use the hospital, that's great. We understand it, and we think that's very fortunate if you don't have to. But unfortunately, most people will have to use it, or they'll know somebody that has to use it at some point.
So this is just the numbers from 2024. We had over 1,800 emergency department visits. We had 101 people that came in for acute admissions, and they were there for 307 days. Our skilled admissions, like I was telling you about, the IV therapy, the physical therapy, all that, we had 75 people that did that for a total of almost 1,200 days. Observation care, 157 people came in to determine whether they needed to stay or whether they could be discharged or whether they needed to go someplace else. And the nursing facility days, those long-term residents that live there and call it their home, we had 2,500 days there. Our rural health clinics, just the primary piece of it, 11,500 almost patients were seen in our clinic for primary care. That's Dr. Esmeyer, that's Dr. Williams, that's Amy Creason, that's Sherry Hedges, that's Megan Duffy, that's Caitlin Spratt. Those are our people that provide primary care. And then the bottom part of it is just a summary of our specialty services, all the specialties, the doctors that I told you about that come once a month, 925 visits, and we had in our laboratory over 24,000 tests ran in the year, 3,700 imaging services, 503 infusions, and 268 visits for cardiac rehab. Cardiac rehab isn't offered in Unionville or Putnam County Hospital, so we get people from Unionville coming down here and from Putnam County. Otherwise, they would have to travel to Kirksville or Trenton. So you can imagine if you're trying to get someone to do cardiac rehab and it could build themselves up after they've had a heart problem and a heart injury, and they have to drive 3 times a week to get that, it's most likely they won't keep that up. So having services like this closer at home are a benefit to everyone. And within the emergency department, we didn't give you a lot of information on a lot of different diagnoses, but because we think a lot of people think of the ER. But the top 3 things that people come to the emergency room are the injuries, and that can be farm injuries, it can be sports injuries, it can be a fall that you hurt something. And then next is respiratory. So injuries are 24, almost 24%, respiratory is 12%, cardiology, almost 9% of our ER patients, and GI is 7.5%. So that's really our top 4 things for reasons for people to come in. But we also have, OBGYN occasionally down below. People who are pregnant come in and have problems. Even if we don't deliver, we still have the capacity to see someone in the ER and take care of them, make sure that they're taken care of in a healthy and safe manner. So we've explained to you why we see the need for a hospital now and in the future. And we also want to tell you why it's important for us to do this now. Because a lot of people are thinking we're rushing into it, or might think that, and we're not. We just spent $1.6 million on the life safety issues. That was such things as making sure the perforations in the ceiling for wiring, conduit, ductwork, and things like that were sealed with fire caulking. That had happened over the course, things that had been moved and switched around for 70 years. We had to change our doors because the surveyor said there was some laminate off the door, and so it wasn't fire secure anymore. There might have been, a calendar put in a door. It was no longer fire secure because there had been some nail hole there. There was flooring issues with loose tile. We had to replace some of the flooring. We had to do more fire suppression and more fire detection. So we had to put more smoke alarms. Sometimes they would say in an area like this, we had 2, nope, you need 3, over here you need 1. We had to put strobe lights on outside of every bathroom, toilet room. We had to move the fire alarms that were so high, they were 6 inches too high. So we had to go out through the whole building and lower them because the code had changed so that they were more handicapped accessible. So those are the kinds of things that happen in a life safety survey that you have to address, or they would have closed the doors. We had till December of 23 to do that, and we got that piece done. In that same survey in 2019, they also told us that we could get all that done, but then we would have to turn around and do all the electrical in the whole building to meet the codes for the state and federal regs. We would have it till 2027. That's what we're trying to beat. That's what we're trying to get in and do a new building and start a new building, so we don't have to put another 1.3 million in just to do the electrical. We still know there's 1953 plumbing. We still know there's problems with the sewer. We know that the floor tiles will probably have to be changed. The next survey comes in, they'll want a solid surface, more like this stuff. So we know all that's coming. It's inevitable that we will have to do more things to that building and have more money put into it. And guess what? After we spent $1.6 million, we didn't have another additional service. We didn't have additional space. We didn't have additional privacy. We have toilet rooms that are this wide. I can reach across them easily. You all have seen them if you've been there. They are between the rooms, between two private rooms. You can open a door and say hi to Joan, and you can open a door and say hi to Sally. And you have a railing in front of you that the nurse or the patient can use to support in lifting a patient up off the toilet. But it's not safe for the patient, it's not safe for staff. You can't hardly get in there to get a larger person out. What ends up happening is you use a commode instead, and so then you're taking your bucket down the hall and putting it into the dirty utility. That's something we have gotten by with, you know, we've accepted, but it's not acceptable to most people to do that. And so we want to change that. We want to have private rooms with bathrooms, but we want to have extra space so that it's safe and private for people to sign in at the front desk and at the clinic. And we want to have an ER that doesn't have a curtain between two beds so that you can have more privacy. You can have exam rooms appropriate for an ER patient. We want to have a room for a mental health, behavioral health issue that's not an open bay. Our trauma room is okay in size, but we need another trauma. And we have two, you know, we've seen some, you know, gorgeous buildings, but we're not trying to get the most gorgeous. We're trying to get something that's functional, that handles what we see we need to have handled. That's our goal. Our exam rooms in the rural health clinic out there, we have 6. And so it's very difficult as you're adding specialty doctors on a, you know, trying to get them to come and trying to attract them to come and the patients that they bring with them. It's very hard because you have to scoot over Dr. Williams and you have to scoot over Amy. Okay, now you can have these 2 rooms. Now let's run 20 patients through here with Dr. Holt and get those done. And so it's crowded. It's crowded and it's not great, and it's hard to attract patients, you know, and doctors to work in those kind of environments. We don't have very much, you know, even counter space to work on for charting and things like that. I want to go back to that one. So we have a lack of capacity, we have a lack of space, we have a threat to our services because at any time if something breaks and makes it where we can't function, what happens? You just close down. What happens if the sewer breaks down underneath the x-ray department? And what happens if it crashes under one of those tunnels going down to our patient rooms? We have a lot of issues that we know will happen eventually. I don't think we'll close, you know, or anything will happen in the next year. We're not saying that. But the time to act is now before we have to spend any more money, because it is going to happen. That building will not be able to be sustained. It'll be a lot of money in the meantime every year. We anticipate all these costs will probably, you know, cost us another few $1 million besides the 1.3 that we know. That's a low estimate. That was a year and a half ago when we got that estimate for the electrical. That's only going to go up. One of the things Josh was telling me about the electrical, to give you an example, we have to have other circuitry available, but like for each patient room, we have to have 9 receptacles. We don't have 9 receptacles, we only have 5 receptacles. So we have to go in and put conduit down the wall, just like the conduit we have for the suction and the oxygen and the telephone and the electrical. Now we're gonna have to do 5 more receptacles for every room. So that's not ideal. That's not what you expect when you go to a hospital. And then, you know, how do you know, it's very difficult. We maintained our services. We had to move things around, but we maintained our services for this life safety. But some of the things that I'm talking about, if they break down and we have to do, it would be almost impossible to continue to take care of patients in that atmosphere. It was very noisy, it was very dirty, and we had to shut down some things while we did the renovation we already had. Good. let's go through the steps we've taken so far. I kind of told you about some of the things, who we've talked to, who we've consulted with, who we've got opinions from as to how, and the decision was by the board and by the county commission, the thing to do was to build a new hospital. Wasn't my decision, wasn't Amy's, wasn't Dr. Esmeyer's. It was a group decision verified by the county commission and our board. So we move forward on that, because that's our job, is to move forward with what we're asked to do and what needs to be done for the community. So we went to USDA, we talked to the regional office, and we talked to the state in July. And they said that there was no point in doing an application in 24, which we weren't ready to do one anyway, but they said, don't worry about that, turn it in 25. But you have to have a financial feasibility study, because guess what? We all need to know how we're gonna pay for it, because isn't that a mystery? We all, we were worried about that as well, how that was gonna happen. And then we have to show community support, which leads us to the half-cent sales tax for April 8th. Now, the USDA's first thought was a property tax. That was not gonna fly. There's no way that's gonna fly. So we had to come up with some other answer. And lucky enough, we found out about a half-cent sales tax for economic development that other counties had used. Greene County, Springfield area, and the Saline County, Marshall, Missouri. They have implemented this half-cent sales tax for economic development. So that was our answer to be able to show community support for a hospital for the future to USDA. So that's one of the main reasons we're doing this in April, is to show the community support and then be able to move forward with an application. That will not pay for the whole hospital, obviously, but it will pay for about over 40 years, which is the time frame we put on the half-cent sales tax for economic development. It'll be about 12.4, I believe. And the USDA will probably loan, the cost of the hospital is $55 million. And that's what the architect, we've tried to map it out. We are trying to get down the square footage a little bit if we can, but it looks like it's going to be about a 2-story building, 62,000 square feet-ish, and around $55 million. They will usually pay, we talked to Tina over at Bethany, because she's building a new hospital right now with USDA funding. So they usually cover in their loan about 80%. And so that would be $44 million, and then the half-cent sales tax would be enough to cover the additional $11 million. So that's where those numbers come from. The land purchase, we started our architect looking for land, and we worked with Allstate consultants as well, but together they looked at about 20 different sites and came down to more like 5, came down to 3, and then we were looking at the expense of grading the dirt to get to, there's no way you can grade anywhere here to get a 62,000 square foot building on a flat piece of ground without it being flood area, which USDA wouldn't approve. So our land options came down to the most economical piece of land to get the infrastructure to it, which is costly to get water, electricity, and sewer, is the land that's between the Oakwood Cemetery and the highway. So there's about 17.6 acres there, and fortunately for us, the Oakwood Cemetery Board agreed to sell that to us, and so we are getting prepared to buy that as soon as the survey and everything and the deeds are prepared. We asked for individuals and businesses to support us there too. We wanted to show another way of saying the community was behind this. And so it was very nice. We have over $120-some thousand collected from individuals and businesses and churches that gave money to this effort to buy the land. So that's really a good fortunate thing for a hospital. We have HFG as our architect. Murray Construction is doing the pre-construction work, and we have the survey is already done of the land, as well as the geotech boring to make sure that the dirt was adequate to build on and grading. So there was no problems there either. So that's a good thing for us. Some of the preparation we also did was we wanted to look at other hospitals because we figured we didn't know enough about a new hospital. We've been working in an old facility for so long, we better look at some new hospitals. So we traveled around, board members went as well, and we went to about 7 or 8, but we tried to, and this is part of the process of picking an architect too. So we were trying to focus mainly on critical access hospitals. We didn't want to look at some large facility that has nothing to do with what we do. We wanted to look primarily at counties that were our same size and population the same size. So these 4, we wanted to show you. There was a couple of others that were too big and they weren't good comparisons. We got good ideas from them looking at them, but they weren't like us. But these are all critical access hospitals. Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, and a South Dakota one. And their populations, like in Milbank, South Dakota, the population there in the town is 3,500 people, and the whole population of the county is 75. Geneva, Nebraska, the population is 2,100 in town. The county is 5,500. We're at about 5,900 in our county. And then Smith County is 3,500, and the population in Smith Center is 1,500. Sioux City's larger, so. But the other thing we wanted to show you on this is because everybody wonders, okay, what happens after you build a new hospital? Well, everyone, including these hospitals as well as the others, everyone said, when we asked them, would you do it again? Was it the right thing to do? Absolutely, without question. We got more services, and we also just had higher volume and higher utilization because we had a new hospital. It's amazing. I hear people that are from out of town or maybe first timers, you know, to Milan, and they had to come to the hospital for something, or they're applying, or like, and they like, this hospital doesn't look very good. You know, it looks like an old elementary school. We're concerned about the care. We're concerned about the people's knowledge. You know, they don't know that Becky was a flight nurse, an OB nurse, and cardiac cath nurse. They don't know that when they look at the building. They don't know that Danny ran all the radiology in Blessing, you know. They don't know it, but they come in and they receive good care, they're taken care of like family, and they receive quality care, and we either do everything we can for them there and keep them there, or they're transferred appropriately to someplace else. And then they see the value of having health care in Sullivan County, regardless of the box it's in, but the box is wearing out. Next slide. I'm going to turn this over to Amy for this part, because I think you guys will all be very interested in this.
Okay, so the main question that a lot of times we get asked is, how are we going to pay for this? We are a critical access hospital, so the only thing that means is we're just like Kirksville, that we provide ER, acute, swing, everything we showed there, but we get paid differently. Kirksville, being a larger facility, gets a per diem for the care they provide for a patient. We get based cost reimbursement from Medicare based on a Medicare volume. So a big piece of this is our Medicare reimbursement for depreciation and interest. Now I'm going to defer for that for now. I'll come back to it. The second piece is, as Martha talked about a little bit ago, was increased volume. The services that we currently have now, the hospitals we spoke with and stuff like that said they had increased volume on even the current services, not even counting the new services. So the new services that we're looking at bringing in, mammography, chemo, more specialty physicians, stuff like that. That is additional services. The half-cent sales tax plays a part in this. It's one piece of the big puzzle. Over a 40-year period, it brings in $12.2 million. Right now, it brings $305,000 per year. New market tax credits. That is where there are investors out there are wanting, they need to invest money in projects, so they work with other companies to look for projects after they are interested in healthcare, rural, they might be interested in something else, schools. They invest in it, they're given a loan, but guess what? After a 7-year period, that loan is forgiven. And we're working with a company now that says we are in the range for a $3 to $5 million new market tax credit. Grants. We will not stop looking for grants. Equipment. We're going to have new equipment in the new building. So looking for grants that will help compensate that. And of course, donors, every kind of donor out there, individual, businesses, everything in that aspect. So let's go back to the Medicare reimbursement for depreciation interest. So this is based on a $55 million loan at 3.75% interest. That is USDA's loan at December of '24. And it's over a 35-year repayment plan. And this is based on Medicare blended capital cost reimbursement of 50%. That's pretty close to where we're at now. So based on that, we're looking at year one, our estimated annual debt service on a $55 million loan is $2.7 million that we have to come up with the payment. Based on the information I've given you here, the estimated Medicare reimbursement for that cost report is going to be $2.4 million that we will receive back through the cost report process. So we have a gap of $350,000 at that point. Hence, we have the cap, if it passes a half-cent sales tax, brings in $305,000. So the first year, we have a $50,000 gap to make up. We have farmers in here, we have businesses. You know how depreciation and interest works. Depreciation goes down a little bit each year. Interest goes down a little bit each year as you pay it off. So Medicare will be paying us a little bit less each year because the interest and stuff is going down. So our gap will be increasing as the lifespan goes on. But over the life of a 35-year loan, based on this, if our Medicare percentages hold true each year at 50%, it can go up 1 year and they'll pay us more. It could go down 1 year and pay us less because it's all based on traditional Medicare volume. Not the number of people you see, it's your Medicare percentage of the number that you see that year. So they will be paying on an annual debt service to a total of $99.6 million with interest. Their percent of it would be 48.8 for half of it, if we stay true for that. So, beginning of the years, Medicare helps you out. You have, you're ramping up, you're getting your new businesses on, the new services and getting everything squared away. Later year, your new volume, your new services will be helping pay for the other gap. So what does that mean? It means utilization. It means people in the community utilizing the hospital for the services that we have and we can have in the future. That plays a big part in it. We can build a new hospital and people choose not to use it. I mean, that's of course their option, but utilizing it helps also. Do I have another slide? Okay, audited financial statement summary. People say, you guys are negative. Your negative operating loss has been $1 million for the last so many years. It is not uncommon for small rural hospitals to have negative operating losses. Operating losses is net patient revenue and other operating revenue. I have 2018 through fiscal year 23. These are completed audited as of now. So if you're able to see operating loss, in 2018, we did not have an operating loss at that point. We had a positive operating gain of $91,000. And then we had losses the other year. But guess what? Our bottom line from 2018 through 23 has been positive, going from $770,000 to fiscal year 23, $98,000. You might think, well, what happened in 21 and 22? Guess what? We got some of that COVID money. So that's where that big change and shift of revenue and the bottom line being a lot higher in those 2 years of a bottom line of $3.5 million and $1.3 million. That was COVID money. What did we do with that? Part of that money was used to, our volume went down. It just did. People stayed home. They avoided care if all possible. So we was able to use some of that money to replenish what would have been normal standards of volume for that. The other piece of it was we did air handlers. Josh helped me here with my maintenance guy. Joe West. A lot of respiratory, some stuff on the roof, all those units on the roof. And we did water penetration, infection control, so we was able to do some new roofing stuff. So that's where all that money went. Were we accounted for it? Yes. We had to submit that information for an audit. They did an audit of it. Not the final one, but we had to submit all of that. They had to see what we did with that money to be held accountable for that. What else do I have? That's it?
So the asset sales tax this is the wording. We utilize, of course, Gilmore and Bell, who do a lot of ballot issues. So this is the wording: shall Sullivan County, Missouri impose a sales tax at a rate 1/2 of 1%, 1/2 of 1% for economic development purposes, which will entirely consist of constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new Sullivan County Memorial Hospital campus. Such sales tax to be imposed for a period not to exceed 40 years after its effective date. So we feel like this is the least painful of any way to have a tax to help support such an important part of the community and part of the county and a business that's going to be staying here and taking care of all of us. It means if you spend $2 someplace that has a sales tax, you're going to be spending another cent. $10, you're going to be spending 5 cents extra. For every $50 you spend that's on a sales taxable item, it's 25 cents. So this is the best way we feel like to show the community support for USDA. I would like to have John now stand and stand up.
A lot of times I stand up and people can't tell that I'm standing up.
So, you know, we've talked to him about our project, so he's aware of it, and I know he's gone through similar situations in Albany, and so I just want you to
Yeah,
comment.
I'll be quick, but then I'm sticking around if there are questions. So yeah, let me explain again. I now work for something called Missouri Hospital Association. All the hospitals in the state choose to be members of that, and it's our job to help hospitals take care of people. And that can be a lot of different ways. I'm a lobbyist, so don't trust me, but I want you to like me. So whether it's health policy, it's trying to help figure out how to make things work economically so that people can keep receiving care in the places where they live. I've been doing that for 3 years. For 11 years before that, I had really the privilege of a lifetime. I was the president of the hospital in Albany, Missouri. It's the hospital where I was born. So for 11 years, I had an office down the hall from the place where I came into the world. For 11 years, all I cared about was trying to figure out how to help take care of my family, friends, community members. My wife was on the school board. We did all the rest of the stuff. I was involved in Community Foundation in Northwest Missouri. My entire reason for being professionally and personally in a lot of ways is to help people live well in towns like Milan and Albany. And so I don't have all the answers. I do try my best to help. I will tell you that what the choices that you all are considering, the options that you're considering, they're not simple. They're really not. Some communities decide that they're going to invest in healthcare and they're going to have a hospital, and some don't. They're complicated businesses to run, and you know, it's not, frankly, it's not something you have to do. There are great towns that don't have hospitals, but I do believe from my experience and what I see as I travel around the state and help people, having access to excellent emergency care and then all the services that come after that it is critical to be in a town that's going to survive and have people feel like this is a good place to live and work. And it's a very competitive business, right? Over half of the small hospitals in the state, over half of the rural hospitals in the state lose money from operations. So you don't have this isn't a surprise to me as I show up here. It's tough, and critical access hospitals run very thin margins and sometimes negative margins. The way they're paid helps them continue to survive and invest. It's no guarantee, but that's really kind of the design, is that, so from a policy standpoint, you start at the big picture. The federal government provides health care through Medicare, and it funds a pretty good chunk of Medicaid. And from a policy standpoint, what they say is, I want people to be able to live and work in places like Sullivan County, Missouri. And so then there is a scheme for how they're going to pay for that care. And critical access hospitals are paid differently and more advantageously than other hospitals. And the reason for that is it's really expensive to be ready to save somebody's life when they have a farm accident, a heart attack, a stroke, or whatever else it is. Yeah, I did the math real quick. You guys average 5 patients a day in your emergency department. So you got a bunch of staff and equipment and everybody else sitting there, and you're seeing 5 patients a day. It takes a lot to be ready for whatever walks in the door after a motor vehicle accident. You know, I had, when I was in Albany, my own son at football practice got terribly dehydrated, had a little problem, lost consciousness at practice, and instead of going 30 miles, he went 2 miles, and we were there ready to care for him in the emergency department. Made a difference for me and my family forever. I'm always gonna be grateful that that hospital was there. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm saying these are the types of decisions that communities make, and not everybody has a hospital, but those that can often choose to do it. And it comes at a cost, and it isn't simple. But it is up to you all to decide what you wanna have. And I'm here to try and share some of those thoughts. I'm not here to sell you anything. Things don't change much for Missouri Hospital Association based on how things go here. But like I said, as somebody who has spent now most of my adult life trying to figure out how to make this work in a community just like this one, I would say be curious, ask hard questions, try and figure it out. Please don't assume that this is simple. But at the end of the day, a lot of communities like this one are as good as they are because you decide that you're gonna work together and do stuff. So those are my thoughts.
Commissioners, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well,
He wants you to come up here.
okay. I've been a commissioner here for 26 years. I got 2 more to go. And from the first time, my first year, the first thing I found out was this hospital is going to need our help. So we've continued to do that over these years. And I'll fight like hell to keep this hospital going because my family has benefited all these years from this hospital. I almost wore out the emergency room over these years. And but 3 years ago, I was blindsided, like a lot of you will be, with that real dreaded disease. So it was what I was able to get done here at this hospital that I was able to get through and get a surgery set up months earlier than I would, because that was back during COVID, okay? And so you need to understand that they're capable of doing all kinds of great things out here at this hospital now. And it's only going to get better for y'all. So thank you all for coming and listening. If you've got questions, start asking them.
And Melba and the board members, you want to say anything?
We're behind you 100%. We know and believe and know that we need a hospital here. We need good health care. May not need it today, but at some point in time, we will, or somebody that we know will.
So, time for questions regarding the new building and the project. Yes.
What's the plan for the old building?
Well, that is not for the hospital admin team to answer, but we have been talking to the county commissioners and the city about that. So I'll give you a list of things that we considered, they've considered. It's really up to the county commissioners. It's a county building. So we know that there's short-term housing needs. We know there's daycare needs. We know there's independent living needs, possibly office space. It's got a full kitchen. So there are things it could be used for, but that's really comes down to when the building is vacated, then and start thinking about it during the building process of the new one. Yes?
Would the repairs and the upkeep on the existing be the same as if we were remodeling the hospital anyways?
There-
It's gotta be done within a daycare in there, and then it's not suitable for a hospital, how is it
Good question. So there would be some maintenance, obviously. There's going to have to be maintenance on the building as it goes along. But the thing with hospitals are that they have such strict regulatory issues that we have to address all the time and keep up with that are not as stringent with daycare.
Yeah, hospital construction is different, and I'm not an architect, but it's a different animal when it comes to, and things that were fine when this thing was built, or even in the years since then, maybe when it's been renovated, the rules change and become far more stringent, and a lot of times, we did a renovation of the hospital in Albany when I was there, and it's kind of that thing that, boy, you just dread tearing into that wall because you don't know what you're going to find. And as soon as you tear into it, now you're opening yourself up to new codes. And a lot of times a little project becomes a big project really fast. And we said many times during our renovation how much simpler and more efficient it would have been if we'd been able to do greenfield construction. It's not the only answer, but that was our experience.
Next question.
How many people do you think the new hospital will employ?
Amy, you have a better estimate of that. We know it's going to increase. We know for one thing that we have to have more environmental service people. We'll have to have some additional maintenance. But we also think that the clinic size will make us have more clinical staff. And we're pretty bare bones on business office billers and on medical records staff. So we think those will increase too. It depends on how fast you build some of those specialty services. We have operating rooms that, we can do some procedures. We're gonna have to have additional nursing staff to cover that. I used to work in surgery, but I haven't done it for years, so we'll have to train those people up. But we will have additional, we will grow, but it'll be incremental.
What's the build time?
Well, architect said 12 months, we believe that, I don't believe that. So, I'm thinking 15 to 18 months would be great, if, considering Missouri weather. So, here's our time frame, and everybody thinks that we're, very optimistic, and we're trying to be. But, we want to get to the point where we can tell CMS, we don't want to spend any more money on this building, and we don't want to start the electrical process. So if we could start building in 27 and be able to tell them that, we're not going to be done by December, but you can see what we're doing. So if we could start in the end of 26 sometime or in 27, I believe they would extend their waiver for us in time period. John, do you agree?
That's above my pay grade on what's the investment. It is not uncommon, I'll say something safe, but being a little place that I'm a lobbyist. You have to go get a variance, and at the end of the day, what it comes down to is CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, are they gonna let you provide care to their beneficiaries? And if their choices are yes or no, then they think really seriously about, do I need to shut this place down and take away access to care? If you've got a plan, there's usually a variance available. I just can't say for sure.
Other questions? Yes.
So I'm gonna steal Commissioner May's line, and I like to help people hospital here. I want everybody to know that. But my biggest question is, I think we all want to know, we want to ensure that we do have a hospital in 10 or 15 or 20 years, right? So if we refer back to Ms. Michael's depreciation schedule, we're obligated to 2.8, I believe she said, $1 million worth of annual payment on that, to where Medicare is going to provide most of that payment, right? For the first.
For the first years, as the depreciation goes down, we have to be able to build our revenue and build it up.
Right. So, it seems like the first 10 years is maybe really feasible, but once you get to years 10 through 35, they start becoming a huge obligation to us. So, with the current administration, I don't believe there's much guaranteed for this funding, right? So, what if today's government cutbacks eliminated spendings, programs, reduced or eliminated? What's plan B for those cutbacks when we're obligated to these huge payments? sooner than what we're getting up on our feet to make a new hospital work.
What? We don't know the answer to that. You know, you're gonna have to, we were gonna do a financial feasibility study. We're gonna do it with the ID data that we have with what's leaving Sullivan County right now.
We're not doing it, it's a auditing process.
CKD, Ford, we're not doing it, but the Ford is a UKD past company, CPA firm. We'll do the financial feasibility study. We've already given them all of our ID data, which shows where everybody in Sullivan County has hospital services given to them. And we will prepare the financial feasibility study, they will, and turn that in with the additional revenues that we anticipate by getting those services back here and adding services that we're not doing. USDA is not gonna give us a loan unless the financial feasibility makes sense. And Forbes isn't going to fudge on the financial feasibility study, it's their credibility. So, we feel like if USDA backs us, and Forbes backs the financial feasibility study, then we need to move forward, because just as you said, we want a hospital in 10, 15 years. We're not gonna have this building that's not gonna be able to support us. We've also heard we're building a Cadillac hospital, and we're not. We're trying to build a hospital that meets the needs of the county as we see it growing. We have a lake project. We feel like, from what we've been told, businesses will increase here. We'll have more people moving in. We'll have construction. So we need to be prepared for that growth. We need to just continue providing quality services, because that's what we do best. But the financial feasibility will be very key to this, and USDA's decision to fund us or not will be very key to this.
Is there a way you can do it in stages? Do stage one, this section of the hospital, so many square feet, then to stage two? If we do see the growth and feasibility over that for 10 years?
Well, I don't know if you have time for this here, but we're not doing 25 beds. A critical access hospital cannot have more than 25 beds. And so we have 25 beds now by moving, switching all of our semi-private rooms to private and still having, I think our square footage on our rooms for our privates is 150 square foot, 154. Anyway, we made a design with 16 beds. We feel like that's adequate for what we're seeing in our census, and it allows us a little bit of the growth, and it allows us a little bit of space for the self-pay residents, for long-term care, so that we have that option for them, because they like that. As far as building in stages, I think that's the biggest thing, is we've cut down our number of rooms. But we want to have all those clinic spaces available so that those can be helping us build revenue. We want to have the procedure rooms. We want to have the ER. The one thing that we've also talked about is MRI. We've been to hospitals that have just a really nice place to park the truck. A lot nicer than what we have, covered area to get there. So they've done that. They bought their own MRI and left it there all the time, instead of having an MRI more frequently than once a week like we do. Then other hospitals have said, we did that, but we saw our MRI services go up so much. Like we were at Syracuse, Nebraska, and they just built onto their building for MRI because their services had gone up so much. It was better for them just to have it inside the building. So we're not going to do MRI. It doesn't look like right now, because we felt like maybe we could save that square footage, and we would be happy with just a good parking spot and covered area for patients to get in and out of safely. That would be, better than what it would be better than now, because they are outside. So, that answer your question? Yes. Anything else?
Okay, so we're gonna go less beds, is that what you're saying, total less beds? And then
our biggest, like in the last couple of years, probably the most people we've had is like 15 to 18 at the most. And that's a very, very short period of time. So.
Are you still gonna have that? I know the long-term care was wonderful at the hospital. I always say that when my years of working there. But are you gonna have long-term care wing on this new hospital?
They will just be part of those rooms. If we have self-pay residents, but we will not have like the whole unit that's long-term Medicaid, no, we will not have that.
probably not in my lifetime of yours, we would have to get a certificate of need to be able to get long-term care Medicaid back. And I don't think we could get it based on there's still beds out in the nursing home that need to be filled. So you would have to go through that process.
Well, I personally think that that would be, I mean, just because I know the great care that the long-term care gave was so impeccable compared to the nursing home, that's just being truthful. So I think that should be an option. I mean, I'm not telling you it has to be, I'm just saying,
Well, remember,
they're so good.
remember, it loses its money. And so we're all concerned about.
Oh, right, but did it always lose money?
Yeah.
Oh, forever?
Because
Oh, okay.
it's it's paid by Medicare. Remember, Amy's talking about Medicare?
Okay.
So that's Medicaid. So
Okay.
Medicaid takes away from what we get reimbursed at the hospital. So that's why the decision was finally made, that we couldn't afford to have it. Teresa?
We cried when we had to make the motion to close it. I mean, we did. It was hard. We didn't want to.
Okay. Teresa?
So when, if the county votes for the tax, and then the USDA says no to the project, what happens to the tax?
Well, we don't think the USDA is gonna say no. They've given us a fair assurance. What they need to see is a financial feasibility study that works and support the community. And what you do if an application fails, you resubmit it. Just like we do so many other things. Kind of like getting insurance paid. You just resubmit it. Yes?
Question. We're talking about bringing these specialty docs in, which is great. You know, people can do their colonoscopies and different things, EGDs, whatever. But I know other hospitals, you know, your hospital, say, accepts Blue Cross Blue Shield, or whatever the insurance may be. These providers that you're going to look at and potentially bring into the facility, are you gonna have them accept the same insurance that you do? Or are we gonna get hammered with these bills like other facilities currently do?
Here's how that
I can speak loud. So, when we bring specialty providers in, they don't do their own billing. We pay them X dollars to come to our facility to see one patient or 20 patients. So they're getting their money at the end of the day. They have no risk. The hospital is taking the risk on bringing on specialty providers. So when we bring them on, we do the billing. So they would be, we would be having the insurances that the hospital has. So we sign those providers up for those Blue Crosses, the United Healthcare, the Medicaid, managed Medicaid and stuff that the hospital currently has.
So when you get them, they say, yeah, we'll come to Milan, we're gonna do this. You're saying, okay, you're gonna be a Blue Cross Blue Shield, you're gonna be United Healthcare, you're gonna be whatever.
Right. So if that provider is going to Unionville, that's Unionville's. They may be a provider of Blue Cross here, but maybe not a Blue Cross provider at Unionville or Kirksville or wherever they came from.
We have to go through the entire insurance credentialing for whatever insurances we want to take for every property.
Right, but in different facilities, because I've got those bills. You know, I go in the hospital thinking, hey, my wrist surgery is covered, then I find out anesthesia didn't take my insurance, the lab didn't take my insurance. You know, so I'm thinking if we're gonna hope to increase these ancillary services, all that has to be in place or people's not gonna use it because they're gonna go.
So we do all the billing for all services except for radiologists. So if you break your arm and you have a radiologist read it, that is done by an outside company and they do their own billing. But if you're seeing a doctor at the SCMH clinic or the hospital, we do the billing.
Any doctor.
Any doctor.
And
say Dr. Holt or Dr. Jackson.
Yeah, so for example, for the orthopedic surgeon that's coming, Sherry Dunlap, I'll throw her under the bus. Sherry Dunlap makes the schedule for that physician. When the person calls to make that appointment, she finds out about their insurance. If we don't cover that insurance, because we didn't think, it wasn't a common insurance or something like that, if we had already set them up for that insurance for some reason, she'll tell that patient, we don't cover that, you'll have to either wait until we get that credential, or you'll have to it's due from you. But what we try to do is do a complete package. Whenever we have a new doctor come in, we try to credential for everything right, Amy, that we think is reasonable for our area.
I need to put a caveat in there. There are insurance companies that will say, we have too many X type of providers in your area, that specialty, but we will not credential that new provider for that. That is a caveat for that.
So in that particular case, how would you handle that situation? Would you say, you know, hey, provider, I think we're gonna look elsewhere?
Well, that would be one insurance.
Right.
So we would
But there
have to,
could
we
be
would have.
resilient insurances that, you know, depending on what you take, I guess.
Right. So in that situation, on that insurance, we would inform the patient beforehand, Dr. Ragsdale, kind of think of his name for a second, the orthopedic person, is out of service. Would you like to still continue to see him? Out of network is X dollars. If you're private pay and want to pay at the time of service and get a discount, it would be X. That's another price. Because everybody knows out of network means higher deductibles. And so sometimes it makes more sense for a person to be a private pay person if a once in a blue moon is going to be out of network to get that discounted rate that they pay at the time of service. Did that help?
Yes, I just, you know, I see all these big services, and I know that we need, you know, all these services instead of running the Kirsten, Columbia, wherever, to do them. But, like I said, I've been in a situation where I had those bills piling up, but they didn't take my insurance, this guy didn't take my insurance, but the hospital did, but all these docs and all these other services didn't. And I think if that ancillary service piece is gonna be successful, it has to have the whole package, because people are gonna go, it's not going there.
So when you go to Columbia, you go down there, have a service, you go to a specialty doc, they have their bill of different tax ID numbers, and stuff like that. You think they're all associated, but there's multiple different tax ID numbers, or it's different contracts. We bill under one tax ID number.
Even for those providers.
Even for those providers, they're under our tax ID, 446005595.
That's a plus, you know, I mean, like, when you get, where you're gonna do surgeries or something, you have to have anesthesiology, you know, some of them fly out from Florida or whatever, do their X amount of hours.
Yes.
And, you know,
You still have to.
But it's good that you're putting all that piece together, so you don't have that worry. I mean, obviously, you always want to check.
You gotta credential them, you have to credential them.
We have to do that.
Yeah, that's on us.
But we want to check our own insurance to say.
Yes, I would
If
do so.
somebody has
And that's part of the process. That's part of the process, when they do schedule. So, yes, Bob.
In response to what she's talking about, I'm fully retired military. In the early days of my retirement, it didn't really matter where I went. That's all changed. So you have an individual responsibility on your own as a patient. You've got to know where you are. And God forbid, it's in musical chairs when it comes to prescription drugs and Kirksville. And Walmart wasn't accepting TRICARE for 2 years. Nobody told me. I just figured the prices went up. Oh yeah, it went up a lot. Then Walgreens, we no longer take TRICARE. Now they do. Okay, so I was up to here. If I didn't get the drugs from the VA, okay, if I had to get the drugs at the VA, guess what I got to do? About every 6 months, I got to drive 250 miles to get recertified for one pill, which I'm glad to do. I still have a copay, plus the cost to drive 250 miles for a pill. Come on, man. Yeah, and in response to that, what would it cost everybody in this room if we had no hospital here at all? Do the math, people. For a pill to get your thumb fixed, well, I had half my foot cut off. Well, that would have been cheap, you know, right in the middle of COVID. They took them 2 hours to find a hospital during COVID that would take me, you know.
So I want to, you mentioned transportation is key. So, right here, the one that had the diagnosis codes. Insurance, so ER, and time of emergency. In our ER at 24, people, the elderly, made up 33% of our business in ER. People on Medicaid made up 26%, private pay was 10%. People that are commercial was 30%. So think, 30% of our ER visits were people who had commercial insurance, that had a job or were self-employed and that was able to went to the market share and got a plan. 70% of our volume in the ER were either the elderly or people who are on Medicaid that may have transportation issues and private pay also. So transportation is important of having access to care. I'm healthy. I can drive. And 20 years from now, it might be different. Or not being able to have a vehicle. Unfortunately, I have a vehicle. Some people don't have a vehicle. So we have to think about also of access to care for people. Thank you.
So this is just an example of the asset sales tax. What we pay now in Milan is 7.98. If it goes up a half cent, it'll be 8.48. Still under what Kirksville and Brookfield and Unionville have. So we wanted to share that information. And then the next one. So that transportation cost and the time in life. Becky, do you want to talk about stroke and heart attack?
Sure.
What it means to travel?
So you wake up in the middle of the night and you're having chest pain, and you're trying to decide, do I go to Kirksville, do I go to Brookfield, do I just drive to Columbia? Well, you're wasting valuable minutes, because the point of it is that if you're 10 minutes, 4 minutes, let's use Jim's example. I'm sorry, Jim, we talked about it.
I asked these questions yesterday.
4 minutes, he's 4 minutes from Milan, and he's about 35 to Kirksville. Well, that 35 minutes he's wasting, because if he comes to Milan, he can already have his aspirin, I can already have done his EKG, I can already look at it and say, oh gosh, well, he's having a heart attack. We can already have called Dr. Hanlon, who's the person, cardiologist who works with us closely, and said, hey, Dr. Hanlon, take a look at this EKG. I can have you on the phone, I can have already sent this to him, he can say, oh yes, you need to get that man to me, I want you to give ABC to him. So I've already got the ABC of drugs started on him and have him in a truck, in an ambulance headed to Kirksville, and when he gets to Kirksville, he can already be in the cath lab in less than an hour, which is kind of the golden hour. We don't use that term necessarily anymore, but that is true, it's an hour. We've saved him 40 minutes of time and got him in the cath lab and probably got whatever coronary was blocked open and saved him a lot of valuable time. And probably saved his muscle, because time is muscle. And so he gets to go home tomorrow and he gets to start cardiac rehab next week, as opposed to what could have happened, and now he's in much worse shape because he decided to drive further. Same thing with stroke. Stroke works the same way.
Then we were talking about transportation, which I'll give you in a second. Just that, if you're just traveling, this is just mileage. This is just mileage cost. This doesn't mean it doesn't count into the time that it takes you, or if you have a family member that has to take you off work. These are the differences in prices. So if you're talking money, this is another cost to all of us as individuals if we don't have care here in Sullivan County. Kevin, sorry.
Yeah, when I was on the school board, we tried to run school board on issue a couple times, and the biggest thing I heard was, how come we can't do sales tax? How come we can't do sales tax? If I seen that, I couldn't read the numbers, but you said that even if we pass this half cent, we're still cheaper than Adair, Putnam, Lynn counties?
Yeah.
Even if we pass it, our sales tax percentage is still cheaper than theirs, right?
Yes, the only place that we would pass, be at 8.48 in Milan is Trenton, which is right now at 8.36, which is higher than we are right now. And Kirksville, we didn't give all the specifics on Kirksville. There's a breakdown of Kirksville, 2 different rates in the city, south and north, and I think they're getting ready to have another sales tax on their ballot too, but that's what it is currently, at least someplace in Kirksville. Yes.
How many more pennies is Kirksville paying than us?
What?
How many more pennies on the sales tax is Kirksville paying than us?
How much difference?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Oh, 9.73 minus 7.98 currently. So we add that up.
So, I mean, even if you look at it this way, if they can do it, why can't we do it? I mean, anybody got quarter?
I spend more money playing a pool game than what it's gonna cost us a year. So, if you guys can't vote for this, I mean, come on.
I'm gonna break it down even further, because I'm a single person, I've lived alone a long time, I don't have a backup, I don't have a spouse, it's just me. What's it gonna cost? $1 a week. $1 a week is what it's gonna cost me. Go off the numbers we've got right now, that's it. How much do you spend driving back and forth? How much do you spend at Casey's every morning? Just think about it, $1 a week, that's it.
So if the tax doesn't pass, is there a backup plan of how to get the money to build it then?
No, that would be up to the board and the county commissioners, what steps that they want to do next. As a hospital, we'll continue to function every day, just like we're doing, 24 hours a day, 365 days out of the year. We're open, we take care of patients, we take care of whoever walks in the door. We'll continue to do that. The issue is it wise not to have this pass and to postpone the inevitable of this building not being able to hold up? We're not making it up. We'll give you a tour any day of the week and show you what we're talking about. The people who work here, raise your hands. We know what it's like to take care of patients there. I was born there and I worked there several different times. It's not gotten any better, and we do the best we can, but we will continue to do care just like we're doing, but we know that the wise decision for us is to tell you what's ahead of us. And, I'm not gonna be alive in 40 years, I'll be dead. I don't know how many other people think they're gonna be dead in 40 years, but I know I will. And so, but I'm hoping that that hospital is still out there for my family and my grandkids. If they're here in town, I want somebody to be able to take care of them. I don't want them to have to go on a car ride to Kirksville with something bleeding or something, a respiratory problem. I have a granddaughter that has, asthma attacks. So I don't want her to have to go 35 miles to the nearest doctor. So that's what it means to me. My dad died there, my mom died there. They were taken care of in the ER when they needed taken care of. My dad begged me not to ever take him out of Sullivan County after he went to St. Luke's. He had great care there, it wasn't bad. He wanted to be at home. So I see people come in for outpatient procedures, or infusions and blood transfusions. What an inconvenience to have to go 35 miles away to do that. What an expense. So that's what we're talking about. It's your hospital, not just ours. So we hope that you have learned a lot for tonight. We hope that you spread what you've learned. If you have any other questions or anything that you want to clear up, please come and talk to us. We're not always available, but we will try to make ourselves available so that we can sit down and talk to you and really explain. Clint.
The one thing, I don't know how far you are in your presentation of vision or slides, but one thing, we're talking about traveling and location, and you didn't bring up helipad, air care, helicopter.
I'm too used to just having everybody move off the parking lot.
Yeah.
So.
That is a big issue.
We won't have to do that. We won't have to do that in a new facility. We will make sure we have a helipad that isn't part of a parking lot. But you see, you just get used to stuff. We just announce it. We find a car we don't know who it belongs to. We go up and down the hall really fast. Who is that car? Who is that car? Who is that car? And then they move. But thanks for mentioning that. Yes.
I do have a question. If everything goes well and everything goes the way it's supposed to, will there be room to expand?
Yes. We'll have room to add on rooms if we need to, and it's, enough space, enough land that we can add on. And we'll have 2 stories to make adjustments on, possibly. I'm not thinking that far ahead yet, but, you can add on to the bottom or the top.
It's always best to have an option to expand.
And that's what we see. Almost every hospital, Amy, Becky, every place we went, almost, had to do some kind of expansion. Not always rooms, sometimes other things. Yes.
If the factory would get voted down, do you have a number on how much inflation would be if you rerun it a year from now?
No, but more, obviously. Yes.
when we go to the fall months?
Would we have to close? I don't know. County commissioners, would you support trying to make the hospital work if we had payment issues as a county entity?
We would try to find a way to do everything possible to keep that hospital open and functioning.
But Wes, you're right. You can't second guess everything 15 years from now or 10 years. Well, honestly, we all don't know what's gonna happen. We all might be blown off the hill tomorrow. And then we have a real issue. All of us would. So we don't know. Yes?
Does anyone look at reaching out to a larger entity to merge with?
Absolutely.
Well, the reason I ask is because Mexico, Missouri, and Fulton, Missouri populations are right around 12,000, and they closed their doors in 2022 because the community wasn't sustainable. So that's just my question, my fear, because we are at 5,800 for our entire county, and I get we can't think about 15 years from now, but we do, because we have little kids that we try to stay in this county.
So Mexico, for instance, was taken over by a larger company. And that's when it closed.
They both were, but Mexico's reopening up underneath Boone. Or Audrain County.
We looked at, Wright and, St. Louis. We looked at it in 96 and 97, and we looked at it as recently as 14 and 15. Both times, it wasn't anything that was viable for them. They didn't want us. Because what they would always say is, well, your patients are always welcome to come, and we have specialty doctors in Trenton. And we're like, we know that, they can go there now if they want, and some of them do. That doesn't help Sullivan County. If Sullivan County residents have someone they need to see at Trenton, and they're available, and they want to go there, they're free to go there now. You're not offering us anything. We looked at Boone, we're a little too far away. That's the problem with Milan, we're a little bit further away than some of those you've mentioned from other bigger entities, so it doesn't work. We've tried management. Management is money out the door, and unless the management company can bring you in more business at a reasonable or low cost, then that doesn't help. I think we have to take care of ourselves.
There's another point on the Mexico example that I think is relevant. They had a building that was operating as a hospital, it was an older building, but because it was grandfathered in, they were able to do that. Then when it closed, and you have the change of ownership and everything else, suddenly all those codes apply, and they're not able to reopen in they're not reopening the same building. So they had an asset that they propped up, but then once there was a change, like you described is possible, then you're stuck. And that's where Mexico is now, is trying to figure out a good plan, but that good plan has to involve new construction, because they hit a wall and they lost what would have been the ability to continue providing care in the old facility.
Okay.
My problem, you can throw millions of dollars at this hospital, and you're still gonna walk up there and feel like you've been transported back in time in the 50s. And nobody wants to come to that. Look at Trenton's new hospital. Doctors are leaving the city to raise your family in Trenton and Chillicothe. Those hospitals are bringing doctors that want to raise their kids in a smaller area. And that's what we can have, if we have a new hospital.
I was just gonna make two comments. How many private pay?
Right now?
Well, and then how many of the new hospital gonna have it? Like, if you're gonna allow 5 or?
It depends on the inpatient, population that we have. We try to keep it steady right now, about 4 or 5. So, we feel like we can accommodate that in the future. That might make a difference, perhaps, if you have an independent living center here in Sullivan County. That, because, usually people can stay in independent living an average of 3 years before they have to go to the next level.
Now, would you guys, that opened up another door in my mind, would you guys, as the hospital, back to the long-term care thing again, because I was so fond of that, would you guys consider, and I'm sure the commissioners would probably understand, think that they would you guys consider still keeping the old, like, if it passed, you built a new building, if you kept the old structure there, and you guys overseen it and ran it too?
You're talking about long-term care Medicaid?
The assisted living.
Assisted?
Because like I said, the facilities are there,
And then it's on the code, and trying to keep up with the codes. And it would be the commissioner's decision for that.
right, that's why I pointed to them. I think it'd be a valuable asset to the county, yeah. And I don't think, personally, I'm just gonna say this, I don't know that we need a really big new hospital, I don't know that for sure, but I'm not saying against it. I'm saying that I think everybody in this room is fond of our hospital, wants it to stay here, wants to support it. I personally think that, I mean, in my heart, that most of the people in this room would love to have a hospital here, if it's, I mean, it might be just the structure that we have, you know, some people are more conservative. I'm just saying my opinion, that I'm glad that we have it, this building here, I'm glad that we have it, and it's providing the services. Yeah, but I'm just saying that, I would think that would be the consensus, that, in the past, I don't think it's in anybody's heart, that nobody would want a hospital here, is what I'm saying.
Okay, we need to wrap this up. We are headed up to you, to Paula. So, any other questions? Tina?
Has other options been looked at prior to a whole new hospital?
Yes.
Such as?
Well, think of two right off the bat, and we may think of more. Becky, as well.
I mean, nobody denies that we need healthcare in the.
So here's the options we talked about. We looked at rural emergency hospital, but that doesn't allow you to keep patients in-house. So you get rid of all your skilled patients, you get rid of your long-term care that you do have. You don't have full services. You know, I think someone's mentioned, you know, we'll just do emergency. Well, you can't just do an emergency room in Missouri. And would you really want just an emergency? Are you thinking about all those other services that people take advantage of by having a hospital? And with an emergency room, you're definitely gonna lose money, and you still have to have your lab and all your x-ray services. And you have to have your providers. The other option that, you know, we considered, and quickly put it aside, was trying to add on to that building, but there's nothing to add on to. Don't you agree, Tina?
I agree with that. I was just wondering, like, outpatient services as is being really big, and you don't have to have a hospital license to have an outpatient service. So we can provide all those outpatient services right here in our community without building a $55 million hospital.
And you wouldn't be able to have a place for your skilled person to
We
be.
can still have healthcare in our community.
Yes, you could.
Yeah.
That's a decision, that's what people need
So
to make.
there's other options.
Yeah, and you, for those, how many people have had a long-term care patient or a skilled patient or an acute patient in the hospital that they know? Neighbor, friend? So that's, I mean, you would not have that. So any of those people would have to be out of town. Yeah.
If you even consider that, would you be able to have an ER?
No.
Yeah.
In the state of Missouri, you can't have a in the state of Missouri, you can't have a freestanding ER. We don't have that capability.
That's correct. There is this new thing that Martha mentioned called a rural emergency hospital. I will say that, I'm on the record from the association standpoint, there's about two ways that makes sense. There is one in the state of Missouri. It's about 12 miles from another hospital that's owned by the same outfit. And so they go rural emergency here, and then all of those other services that would need to be in a hospital, they can send somebody, you know, same ownership, same doc, same everything. That makes sense to them. Otherwise, I think it's a designation of last resort. If you can't do anything else and you want emergency services, that's why this thing exists. It doesn't qualify for the 340B drug discount program, so it is not the same financially as a critical access hospital. When I'm asked about it at the association, that's kind of how I describe it. It can work in a very specific circumstance, but it's not as good of an option as the one you already have, which is a critical access hospital that's been designated as a necessary provider in the state of Missouri. It's an option. It's something that's been made available. It's new. It can be done, but I'm telling you, I describe it as a designation of last resort.
Once you lose any of these services we have, you're not getting any of them back.
Okay, thank you very much.